come on, make a move. Everybody, say it, make a move.
One of my favorite nonfiction writers, Steven Pinker, wrote this wonderful, detailed, well-researched, nearly logically flawless book, Enlightenment. Nearly because in writing this book, Steven demonstrates to us how wrong popular opinion is on so many important topics, and how many miracles the gift of freedom has produced for our species. And he also shows us how very difficult it is to take a good idea to its logical conclusion. It's as though Steven has broken away from a ferocious defense and is running with them at his heels toward the goal line. Steven is faster, and if he just keeps running, the game will be won. But he doesn't keep running. He stops, puts the ball down, and says something like, well, I guess they can take it from here. It is very difficult to say unpopular things, and even more difficult to accept the full consequences of their implication. Sure, now I and some of my fellow YouTubers can do it. We don't have to please a publisher or be on documentaries or be liked by anybody. But when you have to do all these things, your options can be really limited. They put you in the position of doing what Steven does in this book. He makes an unbelievably strong case with number after number and graph after graph, demonstrating that self-described environmentalists have been wrong about nearly everything. That people who have predicted the demise of humanity have in fact been wrong about everything. And then in the next breath, he tells us in not so many words that we're all going to die if we don't use force on our fellow humans to address climate change. Now, I'll probably go into this issue in another segment, but I gotta say that when the folks who believe this issue is critically important changed its name from global warming to something that by definition would make sure they could never be proven wrong, they got my attention, and not in a good way. Predicting climate change, it's like predicting weather change. I see that the weather will change. You see, it did. Not a great way to start your logical argument. On economics, Steven very convincingly describes how economic freedom has increased health and happiness and drastically reduced severe poverty, and how restrictive economies have done just the opposite. He then goes on to defend social spending, code for confiscating money from one group of people and giving it to another, aka reducing economic freedom as something that should be supported and increased. He says basically nothing about this being done without force, which it certainly could be. It's just taken as a given that we must forcibly reduce economic freedom, which he acknowledges is the greatest creator of health and happiness known to man. Huh? He actually says right in his book, which was published I think in 2018, that he distributed a draft of his book to his colleagues, and based on their input, revised his book to make it clear how much he hated Donald Trump. Now, if there was ever a more hateable guy from a personality standpoint, I'm not sure who it would be, but if you want to write a book about how much you hate Donald Trump, well, do that. And if not, don't. Now, to be fair, I don't even think Steven knows he's doing this. We humans are very good at convincing ourselves we believe things when the alternative to believing them is really inconvenient. And we are absolute geniuses at doing this when it threatens our prestige and our livelihood. For an author with ironclad integrity, we must reluctantly turn to Nassim Taleb, author of Black Swan, Fooled by Randomness, and Skin in the Game. I don't think it's at all coincidental that at a relatively young age, Nassim achieved what he calls FU money. That is, he earned enough money that he never had to care what anybody thought of him ever again. And his collected works show it. Now, I'd venture to bet that Nassim has never made substantive changes in his books due to input. Now, his books are organized around a few main concepts. Humans should be striving to become stronger, not weaker, as a result of adversity. It is impossible to predict, much less control, many complex economic systems, and it's damaging to try. And it's even more damaging when humans with no real stake in their decisions try to control complex systems. All these are the exact opposite of many of the things that we're doing today. Now, I think Nassim underestimates the role of individual freedom in making human society successful, but on balance, his logic is rock solid. Now, it probably comes as no great surprise that Nassim Taleb, in the words of one poor sap who arranged a speaking engagement for him, can be a pain in the ass. He seems to view anyone who works for someone else as an employee, as an inane drone, any large organization as a lumbering zombie, and he clearly thinks the answer to all of society's ills is for the rest of us to become as smart as he is. And annoyingly, that would probably help a lot. But it's not happening anytime soon. Nevertheless, we should thank Nassim for not putting the ball down on the 5-yard line, for rumbling into the end zone like a freight train, and then we should forgive him for spiking the ball in our faces. We should listen to him for the exact reason he can do all these things. He doesn't need us, but we need him and people like him to help us see things we are so desperately trying not to see. Read Skin in the Game, The Black Swan, and Fooled by Randomness. Nassim probably won't care, but you'll be glad you did.
Now you won't say nothing about it. You won't say nothing to me. You won't say nothing to